Part of it's infrastructure, physical infrastructure, but part of it's also the kind of human infrastructure. What appropriate investments do we need to make in this organization and other organizations, such as our community college system, where so many of our fellow citizens have to turn and will turn to receive the educational support that they need to compete in this labor market. So I assure you that all of this is, first of all, I want to be very clear. I remain committed to rebuilding Connecticut's infrastructure, finding ways to do that. In very short order, getting off what has become a routine in this state, and that's to borrow money on Wall Street to cover operating expenses, so that we don't have to make hard decisions, but in doing so, squeezing out our ability to borrow money to invest in infrastructure because we've already taken the money to cover our operating bills. So that's the context in which we'll operate. We're going to do all of what we have to do. What I would reasonably project for you is that we're going to have a tough couple of years, that the adjustments necessary to establish what our means are, and then to lay the course that we live within our means and project to live within our means over a long period of time is going to be some tough work. All of which, by the way, at least with respect to my budget and recommendations to the legislature, have to be accomplished no later than February 16th. In fact, I've taken to referring to my tenure, forthcoming tenure. Actually, I should say this. I'm unemployed, but my prospects are good. All I have to do is survive till the 5th of January. I got a job. I've taken to describing the first year of my office is really made up of the period of time between January 5th and February 16th when I have to propose that budget. Or you could argue you could stretch it out until the legislature has completed its work. I'm fearful to do that because I don't know how long it will take, Carlo. And then in that fiscal year that begins on July 1, in essence, really is our second year, because we're going to have to make assumptions about what we will accomplish over that 12-month period between July 1st and June 30th that will actually allow us to live within our means the following year. Because this is a biennium budget, and I'm going to have to make assumptions about where and what we can save or retrain ourselves or accomplish the efficiency creation that we are so desperate to see accomplished in our state. So that gives you a backdrop of what we're trying to do. Now, where does this all fit into what's going on in the workplace, the broader workplace, not the copyrighted name? This is, and all of this relates, so just bear with me. As I'm looking at the current projections for the budget, those that the governor tendered to me shortly after the election, the budgetary assumptions are that we will remain at about a 9.1% unemployment rate through the next fiscal year. And that unemployment rate will fall in the second fiscal year to about 7.5%. I hope they're wrong about the first year, and I hope they're right about the second year. I hope that we can make more progress in the 12 months of the fiscal year than simply remaining where we are now. But I also think that the 7.5, looking at national trends, might be a little aggressive. And of course, in our state, one of the reasons that I'm particularly fearful of that is not only this 22-year history of having been a leader in losing jobs, but also, again, go back to our failure to properly prepare a workforce to take the kinds of jobs that this economy is most likely to produce. That's why this well-run organization that you've asked me to address today is so very, very important. As I've examined our labor efforts in the state of Connecticut, I don't think there's any organization which has been more nimble than this one. I don't think there's any organization that has moved as quickly to identify emerging trends in the marketplace than this one. And I don't think there's any organization that has put a team together to train people to make that turn as quickly as this organization. In fact, I really want to be very clear. I think this is the model organization in our state when it comes to doing the things we have to do to prepare our workforce and to make that connection between those employers out there who are in need of assistance and the people of this region who need assistance in finding a job. But here is now the shift that I want to talk about. It is my hope that in a very short time, I'll be able to name a person to head the economic development efforts in the state of Connecticut. The first charge of that individual will be to examine in a very broad and very rapid fashion all of the tools that the state of Connecticut has in its toolbox with respect to job creation and economic development. And then ultimately to bring all of those that are state resources in under a single organization. And then to look at organizations like this one and to make sure that we have the proper working relationship between those individuals who are charged with deploying our economic development plan and this organization and like organizations, and to make sure that we have proper contacts between non-economic development departments, but whose actions are very reflective or very impactful in economic development, including higher education, pre-K through 12 education, transportation, DEP, and of course the issue of the cost of electricity, which is extremely important in the state of Connecticut. So what we're going to do in short order, I hope, is to take a very broad examination, understand the best practices that other states are deploying in this country, and let's just go down south and we'll just copy what's being done in many of those places because they've been taking our jobs for a generation. But examine all of those things that work and then bring those to bear in the state of Connecticut. One state organization with solid relationships across a broad spectrum of agencies and not-for-profits that are actively involved. That is what my goal is, and I believe that I'm capable of assembling such a team. And that's the message that I want to impart here, that I believe the working relationship between the state's economic development efforts and this organization will in fact be strengthened, not weakened, even though we have these gigantic financial challenges. Because ultimately, this is the message I have to deliver to the people of Connecticut. We'll establish our means. We'll live within our means. Shared sacrifice will be necessary to get us to that point. We'll invest in our infrastructure. We'll lay the track work for future job growth and development, and we will modernize our approach to all of those subject matters in very short order. That's what we're going to do. And so I'm fond of saying now that Connecticut is open for business, and a very big part of being open for business is this organization. Thank you for having me here.